we just do it together. Thank you all, and I now take your questions. I guess, are you calling on people, or how am I don't have a list, so you go ahead and call.
Thank you, sir. This morning, in reference to that article in The Atlantic, in a call convened by your campaign, Khizr Khan said that the comments demonstrated that President Trump's life is a testament to selfishness, and that his soul is that of a coward. You've talked about this as a different view of how you see the job as president, but when you hear these remarks, suckers, losers, recoiling from amputees, what does it tell you about President Trump's soul and the life he leads?
I'm going to try to be measured in my response. If it's true, and based on other things he said, I believe the article is true, I'd ask you all the rhetorical question. How do you feel? How would you feel if you had a kid in Afghanistan right now? How would you feel if you lost a son, daughter, husband, wife? How would you feel, for real? I know that's not your job to express that feeling, but you know. You know in your heart, you know in your gut. It's deplorable. It's deplorable. As I've said many times, I'll say again, these folks are the backbone of America. They're the heart, the soul, the grit. That's what patriotism is about. I've just never been as disappointed in my whole career with a leader that I've worked with, president or otherwise, that if the article is true, and it appears to be based on other things he said, it is absolutely damnable. It is a disgrace.
Sesky, on a somewhat related topic, what would you say to the supporters of the QAnon, the people who believe in that conspiracy, what they think is true about America, that there's sex trafficking and a conspiracy against President Trump, and what would you say to President Trump for not rejecting that conspiracy and the people who believe in it?
I've been a big supporter of mental health. I'd recommend that people who believe it maybe should take advantage while it still exists in the Affordable Care Act. It's bizarre, totally bizarre. And now, have you guys found that plane load of people in uniforms and weapons and flying around? I mean, you know, have you found them yet? Is anybody even from, and by the way, I respect conservative and liberal points of view in the press. Anybody found that plane? What in God's name are we doing? Look at how it makes us look around the world. It's mortifying. It's embarrassing, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous. If the president doesn't know better, which he has to know better, then my Lord, we're in much more trouble than I ever thought we were. It's bizarre. And, you know, this is a case where, you know, I've been surprised, pleased but surprised, with folks I've had political arguments with, like the former governor of Michigan, coming out and endorsing me. All the Republicans are endorsing me. They're rich where I am. That this can't go on. I mean, this cannot go on. It's a deconstruction of a democratic system. They know it. So I just, I'll conclude with what you heard me say many times before. The words of a president matter, even a lousy president. It gives succor, it gives encouragement to people who are spouting irrational views that no one has even close to ever presuming or showing ever existed. And it's done for a simple reason. From the very beginning, he's understood the only way he could win the first time and can win this time is he fundamentally divides the nation. Puts the nation, divides us so we're at each other's throats. That's not who we are. That's not who we are.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Last night, President Trump mocked you for wearing a mask and said that this is a sign that you must have some, quote, big issues. He says this even though he knows that, according to scientists and public health officials, wearing masks saves lives. I wonder if you worry that this kind of language that comes from the President of the United States could deter some Americans who are tuning into him to not wear masks.
Well, I wear it for a reason. It's a big issue. I'm a smart fella. I listen to
Chúng ta đang nghe
scientists.
cái buổi
This is
phát
not a
biểu họp
game.
báo của ứng cử viên Joe
Life
Biden.
and
Hiện
death.
nay thì qua cái phần phát biểu ta đang có
Life
cái
and
phần
death.
đặt các câu hỏi. Vừa rồi phóng viên có đặt
Reports that
câu
we're
hỏi
gonna
rằng là
maybe there's some reports there's
hôm qua ông Trump
100,000
có
dead, as many as 100,000
châm
dead
chọc ông về cái vấn đề
by the end of the year.
đeo khẩu trang
I mean, I don't
và
get
với
it.
cái ngôn ngữ
I
như
mean,
vậy thì ông có nghĩ rằng là
I
khi
just
ông Trump nói như vậy thì sẽ xúi người ta
anyway,
không đeo khẩu trang nhiều hơn
it's
không?
hard to respond to something so idiotic.
Câu hỏi có vẻ nghiêng về một phía một tí.
Before my second question, just quickly, have you been tested now for COVID-19?
Yes, I have.
Ông đã
How many times?
I've been tested
xét nghiệm cho
once
COVID-19 hay
with
chưa?
the deep
Thì ông
test,
nói là có.
and I'm going to continue to be testing on a regular basis.
Ông ấy
Could I just
nói
ask
là ông
quickly about Attorney General
xét nghiệm
William
một cách
Barr
thường
saying
xuyên.
on CNN this week, he said that his assessment right now is that China poses the most aggressive threat to U.S. elections, even more than Iran or Russia. Do you believe him? Is that also your understanding based on the intelligence?
Ông Trump nói rằng là Trung Quốc đe dọa cái cuộc
No,
bầu
it's
cử
not
của Mỹ nhiều
consistent
hơn
with
là
the
Nga với
briefings I've
Iran nữa. Ông nghĩ
received,
sao?
and he's a lousy enough attorney general, but he's a really bad intelligence officer.
It's not consistent because you believe.
Because I
another
believe what I've been told, and you all know it. I mean, look, it's you even have outfits like Facebook taking some. Look, it's just there are a lot of countries around the world I think would be happy to see our elections destabilized. But the one who's working the hardest, most consistently, and never has let up is Russia. And again,
Ông nói rằng là rất là nhiều nước trên thế giới muốn cái cuộc bầu cử chúng ta bị lộn xộn, nhưng mà cái nước mà phá nhiều nhất đó là Nga.
Of Vladimir Putin. I mean, what's the problem? I mean, nothing. Nothing. It's almost obsequious. I mean, anyway, I just want to make it clear. I believe any country that engages in any activity to delegitimize or impact on American elections is a direct violation of our sovereignty. And if I'm President of the United States, there will be a response.
Ông nói rằng là ông tin rằng là tất cả các nước nào mà ảnh hưởng, cố gắng phá hoại cái cuộc bầu cử Hoa Kỳ thì đều là gây chuyện với lại cái Hoa Kỳ. Nếu mà ông làm tổng thống thì ông sẽ có sự phản hồi.
Why is that, and what role do you see her playing in the final?
She's been on the road. She's out herself. The role is that, just like when Barack and I campaigned, we tried to cover as much territory as we could, and both of us out campaigning. She is an incredibly competent candidate. She is doing a great job. There will be times when we're together, but there's a lot of territory to cover. I talk with her almost every day. I speak with her. We work together. And I have great confidence in her. There's nothing about not campaigning together. It's about being able to cover more territory.
Câu hỏi rằng là tại sao ông với lại bà phó tổng thống không
Do
có
you
đi
know
vận
when
động
you
chung với
will have
nhau, thì
another
ông nói là bây giờ có
COVID
rất là
test? Do you
nhiều
have
nơi cần
any
phải
plan in future
dàn trải ra cho
events?
Well, what
phía
they're
để
doing is they're
phải
going to
dàn
do it
trải
on a
ra.
regular
Có
basis
lúc hai
because
phía sẽ cùng
everyone
hai
on
người sẽ cùng
on my service detail and people who come
vận
into
động.
the house with me, they're all attested. So I'm just doing, yes, sir, show up and put my head back, when they tell me.
You don't know when it'll be? Next one?
Pardon me?
You don't know when the next one will be?
No, I imagine it'll be sometime this week. I just don't know. But it'll be a regular basis.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me ask you about another thing the president said last night. He once again suggested to his supporters that they should consider voting twice if they're in one of those states that can allow you to request an absentee ballot. Say, fill that out and then go try voting again in person. State officials have said it's a felony in some cases.
Câu hỏi này có mang tính cách là dẫn đường. Nói rằng là ông tổng thống Trump vừa rồi là có xuống người ta là bầu 2 lần, một lần bầu thơ, một lần bầu
How many times
tại phòng phiếu, và
does
như
this
vậy thì
president
đối
have
với
to
các tiểu
suggest
bang và
things and
liên
say
bang như vậy
things
là
where you all
đổi
don't
hình?
just write,
Thế thì ông
he's
có
a
ý kiến gì?
fraud?
Câu này là
Not
mang
being
tính
not
là
an
dẫn dắt,
opinion.
gọi là
He
sai
wanted
ngay
to.
từ trong câu hỏi.
Maybe we should delay the election. Maybe we should, write-in ballots are fraudulent. Not a single bit of evidence. It just is. And I think it's all designed to create so much chaos that no matter what the outcome of the election is, that it's thrown up in the air. I think that must be his reason because, he says and does things that no other president that I'm aware of in American history has ever done. And we all go, well, there's another ridiculous, illegal, inappropriate thing he said, but we says so many of them, it doesn't matter.
Ông nói rằng là ông Trump thì cố
It
tình
is,
tạo ra vấn đề hỗn loạn
it's
cho bất
just,
cứ cái hoàn cảnh nào, và cũng như
it
là
just
ông đã
undermines
nói nhiều cái
the legitimacy
sai quá cho nên không còn
of
quan
our
trọng là sai
democratic
nữa.
process. And it's dangerous.
You said today is the angriest you've been as a presidential candidate. But you said you're trying to restrain yourself. There are a lot of people out there who are supporting you or are inclined to not vote for the president who would say, why isn't Joe Biden angrier about all of this?
Because presidents of the United States should be presidential and should lead by example as well as make clear exactly where they stand. Getting down in the gutter like the president does, saying things that I'd be inclined if we were behind a barn somewhere would be a different thing. But that's not the job of a president.
Ông nói rằng là tổng thống thì ta nói theo kiểu tổng thống, còn
My
nếu mà
anger is real
như ông
because I
Trump
must
thì
tell
nói
you,
theo kiểu gọi là
I carry, and I deliberately didn't bring
quá
with me
thấp.
today. Delaware National Guard had a pin made up. That's a gold star that was made up for my son Bo, who didn't die in the field. And I always carry it with me. And I didn't carry it today because I was worried that if I focused too much on it, that I would engage in some of the kind of language the president has used. But I just think it is sick. It is deplorable. It is so un-American. It is so unpatriotic. And then watching him this morning, while I was shaving and the TV on, talking about he never said anything like that. He honored John McCain. He's the reason why flags were flown at half-mast. Oh, wasn't that noble of him? He's the same guy that when the ship went into harbor, he made sure the USS McCain was covered. You couldn't see it. He's the same guy that denigrated John. He's the same guy who did a similar thing the way he talked about George H.W. Bush, who was shot down in the Pacific.
Ông
he stands there.
Joe Biden đang chỉ
It's
trích
almost
những cái
pathological.
việc
I've never said anything like that.
nhất là những cái phát biểu của Tổng thống Trump
No
cho
one's
rằng là
been
không
better
có
to the military.
thích hợp cho cái vai trò tổng thống.
I've just got to focus on what has to be done, not what he did, what I do from here.
Tôi phải tập trung vào những gì mà tôi cần làm chứ không có thể tập trung vào những gì mà ông ấy nói, nhất là nói về tôi.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. If I could follow up on Ed's question about voting. We know the president has been attacking mail-in voting. He's even now suggesting his supporters vote twice. We also know that Russia has been trying to sow doubt about this system. Are you concerned at all that this messaging may be working, that your supporters may give up on voting by mail because they're concerned that it may be rigged?
Yes, I am. That's why I try not to talk about it so much.
Vấn đề
Because
bầu
I'm
cử
playing into, we're playing, the more we
đó
talk
là
about,
cái
there's two things he
sự
wants us to talk
sú
about.
dại của Tổng thống Trump thì
Is the
có
election
làm cho mọi người sẽ
legitimate?
nghe theo hay không? Ông nghĩ sao?
And the whole country's up in flames. Everything's burning. Law and order.
Tất nhiên là những cái câu hỏi đều mang tính
Because he
dẫn
doesn't
dắt
want to
theo
talk about
kiểu mà
anything.
đặt cái mệnh đề
Anything at
nó
all
sai
about
từ
the
mệnh
job
đề.
he hasn't done. And so it's a conundrum. There's a lot we could talk about in terms of the specifics that Russia is doing and not doing. But when you do it, all it does is undermine what people think may be the legitimate. What I don't want to have happen, I don't want people reaching the point where you could understand sometimes it's not worth voting. You know, it seems to me that one of the things that I keep trying to say to people is go to iwillvote.com. Figure out iwillvote.com and figure out where you can vote, how you can vote,
Ông kêu gọi mọi người vào cái trang
where you can vote
iwillvote.com
early,
để mà
where you
tìm
can vote
cách
in
để
person,
mà biết sẽ bầu
where
cử
it's
thế
going
nào.
to be safe for you, etc. Plan now. Plan now. But the more chaos that is sown here, it's going to disincline people to show up. And in a sense, every time I speak about it, I feel like I'm playing at his game. I mean, is that, not do you agree with me, but does it make sense what I'm saying? That's what I'm, so I think that's all part of the deal.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Going back to the jobless report from this morning, you had acknowledged that less than half of the 22 million jobs that were lost this spring because of the pandemic have been recovered. What do you think the 1.4 million added back in August says about just the general direction of the economy?
I
Câu này
think
hỏi
any
về cái vấn
job
đề
added back is possible.
vấn đề
I think
công
it
việc bị mất đó
matters
thì
to the people
ông
who
nghĩ
got
sao về
that
những
job
công việc
back.
1.4 triệu
You
công
know,
việc đã được
maybe you all
quay trở lại.
were raised in households like I was, where the mom or dad was losing a job because of the economy or what's going on in your community. You could feel the tension, unease in the household, how it just everything, you know, worrying about whether you can provide for your family.
Ông đã nói tới là ông gặp những trường hợp những người mà bị mất công
Also, look at
việc
the
đã
people
bị
who
những
you've
cái
got, you know,
áp
a
lực
couple million people out
phải
there
lo cho
close
gia đình như
to
thế nào.
who are part-time workers who still can't make it, but are listed as employed. And a lot of them also are in the process of wondering whether or not, I mean, there are a lot of people lined up in food lines. They're the people, many of them, who have lost their health care, their health care provided by their employer. There are the many.
Ông nói là có
same
rất là
people
nhiều
are
gia
out
đình
there
hiện nay là
wondering
thiếu
if this president
công
is
ăn việc
able
làm,
to
phải
win in
đứng
court
xếp
and wipe
những
out
đồ
the
ăn,
entire
thậm chí
Affordable
là
Care Act.
mất những
All
cái
the 100 million
bảo hiểm y
people with
tế
pre-existing conditions
từ
won't
công
be
việc
able to
của
get
họ mất
insurance even if they
công
had
việc
the
mất
money.
mobile bảo hiểm y tế vân vân.
And, I mean, it's just the anxiety is enormous.
Ông nói là cái sự lo lắng đó là một cái
And
sự
look,
lo lắng hết sức
again,
to
I'm not
lớn.
being solicitous. Among the brightest people I've dealt with my whole career have been the press. Not a joke. You're all extremely well educated. You're well read.
Ông ca ngợi một trong những loại người là thông minh nhất mà tôi gặp đó là những người làm trong ngành
The
truyền
vast
thông.
majority have tried to report the news, not just opinion. But I can't believe that you don't feel the same, not Democrat, Republican, okay? You don't feel the same anxiety because you got a brother or a sister, a mother, a father, a son or a daughter who's going through what you're not, what we're not. We have jobs. Well, I don't have a job now, but we have jobs. And so it's a real concern. And I just think that this has moved beyond Democrat, Republican. I think it's moved to trying to put this country back
Ông nói là vấn đề là
together.
sẽ phải vượt qua cái Cộng hòa hay là Dân chủ, nhưng mà phải là đi tới một cái giải pháp để mà đưa đất nước cùng nhau trở lại.
I like to
President,
engage.
if I may ask, President Trump has just announced the Kosovo and Serbia deal, and as part, President Trump has just announced an economic normalization deal between Serbia and Kosovo. And part of that deal is Kosovo and Israel having diplomatic normalization. You have stated that you support a two-state solution in the Middle East. Would you support more Muslim-majority countries normalizing relations with Israel, even though it may mean that the Palestinians will lose leverage in their fight towards a two-state solution?
Well, first of all, I'm
Câu
not,
hỏi
I
liên quan
don't
tới
know
cái
what the deal is you're referring to.
cái
Okay?
thương thuyết giữa
What
Serbia
I
và
argued
Kosovo mà ông Trump vừa mới
relative
đưa ra
to
sáng nay, đó là hai nước
Serbia and
bình
Kosovo
thường hóa lại về kinh tế
is that
ở diện với nhau.
Kosovo
Thì
should
câu
be
hỏi
an
là ông có
independent
ủng hộ cái
country,
việc mà Muslim, tức là
not
những cái
a
đất nước
part of
của
Serbia. I've
những
spent
người
a
đạo
lot of
hồi
time
sẽ
there.
tiếp tục có quan
And
hệ
so
tốt
I
đẹp
don't
lại
know
Do Thái hay
how,
không.
I
Mà,
assume that would
có thể là
reinforce
cái việc
that
đó sẽ làm cho
independence,
phía
but I don't
Palestine
know
sẽ bị
based on what's being said.
thất lợi một tí.
I think normalization of relations among countries is by and large, in almost every instance, a good thing.
Tôi
To
tin
have
rằng là
a Muslim majority
cái sự
country
quan hệ của các nước
normalizing
tốt đẹp thì là một
relations
điều tốt đẹp.
with Israel in a generic sense seems positive to me, but I have to know the detail of what's happening,
Nhưng mà tôi phải biết cái
what's going on.
chi
And
tiết cụ
I
thể nó
don't
xảy ra như thế
know
nào.
that, and you may be right, that would cause the Palestinians to lose leverage in a decision on a two-state solution.
In
I'd have to
general,
look
do
at
you
it.
support more countries recognizing Israel?
Oh, I do.
Ông
Absolutely.
có công nhận, ông có
I do. And I think that's the thing. Recognize Israel as an
ông có ủng hộ
independent
việc
Jewish
nhiều
state.
nước tiếp
I
tục
think
công
that's
nhận
important.
Do Thái hay không, thì ông
And,
nói ông
but
có
also,
ủng
I
hộ điều đó.
believe that Israel has to be prepared to work toward a genuine two-state solution. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Cuộc họp báo chấm dứt, gọi là khá là ngắn gọn và cũng như là câu hỏi thì hơi chậm chạp đối với ông ấy một tí. Câu hỏi nhẹ và chậm, tốc độ chậm, câu hỏi gọi là hơi quá lịch sự với ông.